At 17 years old, I hit the lowest point in my life. I got arrested on a felony charge, and my mom, a single mother, had to take money out to bail me out that she didn't have. Now at 24 years old, I've made millions of dollars online, been able to retire my whole family, and have given my mom the life of her dreams. My name is William Rivera, and this is my story.
We may not know which way to go on this dark road.
Breakthrough.
Beamer Benz a Bentley, Beamer Benz a Bentley. Beat it, I bet she let me. She been fiending since she met me. I'm the coolest shit, especially when I throw on all my Gretzky. Got my sister Smith on one seat to protect me, so respect me.
So my parents came to America at 18 years old. They were born in Nicaragua, Esteli, Nicaragua, actually one of the poorest countries in the world, one of the most beautiful places in the world though. And I was born here in Miami, Florida. Shortly after I was born, I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, a little outside Atlanta in Gwinnett County. Some of you guys may know Migos, Lil Yachty, Future, all those Atlanta rappers, guys. A lot of them are from Gwinnett. And that's kind of where I stayed around for the longest time. I did move around a lot with my mom because my mom and dad divorced at a young age as well. And it was just me, my mom, my little brothers for most of my life. And every single year we would hop from apartment to apartment to apartment because my mom couldn't afford the rent going up every single year. So we would always move into a cheaper area. While I was young, it was hard for me to kind of understand this. And I was really mad at my mom for making me move schools every single year because I was a very introverted kid. But looking back on it, I understand that now, my mom just simply didn't have enough money to stay at the places that we were staying at. And she would always try to, find a cheaper spot. And I can still vividly remember being such a young kid and watching my mom work so hard, watching her work as a maid in these hotels, watching her work as a teacher, watching her work as a server, and watching her work multiple jobs, and yet still barely being able to provide. And while she still was able to provide the things that me and my little brothers needed, I just saw the stress in her face every single day she would come home from work. And the feeling that I felt was kind of like helpless. I was like, wow, I'm so young that I can't even get a job to help my mom out. The only thing that I can really remember is that I understood at a young age that working hard doesn't equal making a lot of money. And although I couldn't do anything about it at the time, that really stuck with me because I understood at a young age that I had to do something smart. I had to do something different when I had the opportunity to do so when I got a little bit older, because I didn't want to live this life that my mom was living. And most importantly, I wanted to be the one to take her out of this life since my little brothers were significantly younger than me. I'm actually 10 years older than them. So I always saw myself as that person that needed to get my family out of the struggle because I had no father figure. My dad wasn't in my life, so we didn't have anyone to lean on. So naturally, I kind of was like a big brother and a dad almost because I had to teach my little brothers everything. I had to be the one to be there for my mom when she was upset. I ultimately took that responsibility at such a young age. And I attribute that a lot to my success because I put a lot of weight on my shoulders by the age of like 10 years old. So as I got older, and I started to get around that age of 15 where I could get a job, that's immediately what I did. I remember my first job being at Brewster's, then Steak and Shake, then Cracker Barrel, then Burlington, and the list goes on because every single job that I got, I ended up getting fired. And not fired because I was a horrible employee, fired because I realized that it was so easy to get another job. I remember having shifts, having a schedule, and then my friends would hit me up like, hey, do you want to hoop? Or hey, do you want to go to this movie? Or hey, do you want to do this? And I would always just abandon my shift to go do it. I didn't value these jobs because I was getting paid so little. I was getting told what to do by people that I knew for a fact weren't smarter than me. I just knew that there was no value in keeping this job, and I knew that I wasn't going to be an employee for long. On top of that, I also thought I was going to go to college for basketball. My whole life I played basketball, travel basketball, AAU, school basketball, and luckily I had coaches in my life that kind of stepped up as a father figure and would allow me to play on their basketball teams even though my mom did not have enough money to pay for the fees. In fact, a lot of these coaches that I have to shout out later in this video, shout out Coach Sean, shout out Coach Parker, a lot of these guys actually would pick me up from my apartment and take me to the games because my mom also was never really able to take me to my games or even watch me play. I think this really built a kind of tough mindset in me when I was younger because I understood that I was doing this for me. If I had a bad game, no one knew. If I had a good game, no one knew. I never had any family in the crowd. I never had anyone watching me. So from a young age, I understood that all of this work that I was putting in was for me. By my senior year in high school, my focus kind of changed changed because I realized that I wasn't good enough to go to the league. So there was really no point in me pursuing this basketball thing more than I should. So I solely focused on making money. At the time, I was working at Dick's Sporting Goods, but I wasn't really getting paid that much. And I've always had that hustler mindset. So I was like, you know what? I need to figure out a way to make more money. So the genius plan that I came up with was I should start charging my friends $50 to $100 and give them discounts when they come into my stores, like 50% off something that they wanted in Dick's. It was good because a lot of these high schoolers, they would need jerseys for the Jersey night football games. It was cold in Atlanta, and the Nike windbreakers were possible, and they were like popular, and they were about $100 a pop. So I used to have a lot of these students come into my store, cash at me under the table, and I would sell them these clothes for a discount. In fact, it got to the point where I go to my first class of the day and get like 3 cash apps. Second class of the day, get another 4 cash apps for $50. So I was making decent money for a 17-year-old. But then one day while I was working at Dick's, I got a phone call, and it was the loss prevention team at Dick's. And I remember they walked me out of the mall in handcuffs, and I got arrested that day. And I remember the whole time being in that cop car on the way to jail, the only thing I was thinking about was like, fuck, I gotta call my mom to get me out this shit later in the night. Like, I knew it was gonna be like 8 hours until I got the opportunity to talk to her. I knew that she was gonna be worried and wondering where I was. And that's really the only thing that I was thinking about, because I knew that my mom does not have enough money to deal with this type of shit. I knew my mom did not have enough money to bail me out. And that was the only thing that I was thinking about at that time. And not only that, I was also thinking about, when I get out of here, I have to seriously make this up to my mom. Like, I have to really start taking my life seriously and learn how to make money legitimately in a way that I didn't have to trade my time for it, because I knew that jobs weren't gonna make me rich. So eventually my mom came, went through a bail bond company, moved a lot of stuff around, made it happen. Shout out to my mom, and she got me out of jail. And I remember just having a court date a year later. Just imagine being a senior in high school. You have a court date a year into the future. Every single day you're getting closer to this court date, and you don't even know what your fate is. You don't know if you're gonna go to jail for a year. You don't know if they're gonna, like, you don't know what's gonna happen. And I just remember like having conversations with my mom about lawyer fees and how expensive a lawyer is, and not knowing if they could get me a lawyer. And eventually the court date came, and the judge sentenced me to 5 years probation, which I'm thankful for, because the other alternative would have been a year in jail. So much rather would be home with a 5-year probation, right? This was towards the end of my senior year. I just remember thinking to myself, like, okay, like, I can't go back in time. This isn't irreversible. You know, I just got to deal with this, and I gotta figure something out. I gotta make money. I gotta pay back my mom, because my mom's dream, and I knew this was her dream, was to own a house, was to live in a home, because every single year leading up to this time, we were just apartment hopping. I'm a very common sense type of person. So I kind of looked at my life and looked at the possibilities, and I picked the path that would be more likely to be able to buy my mom a house, right? So as I graduated high school, I was like, okay, I can go to college, and maybe in 4 years, maybe I'll graduate, I'll get a good degree, hopefully I'll get a good job, and then I'll be able to start paying for my mom's things. Or I can go get a job, start making money immediately, and on the side, figure out some type of side hustle. I don't know what side hustle it is yet, but I can figure out some type of side hustle to maybe double my income or increase it by a little bit, so I can start helping my mom immediately. And this was way more appealing to me than waiting 4 years to be able to help my mom that has already struggled for the past decade. So I got a job at an Amazon warehouse. And again, shout out Amazon, because I had a felony on my record. They decided to take the chance on me. They gave me the job. I was working from 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. graveyard shift, getting paid around $11 an hour. This is 2018 at the time, so right after I graduated high school. I remember working this job. This was in Jefferson, Georgia, bumblefuck Georgia, like away from everything. The only thing in this town is warehouses. So I'm working this job. Every day I would come into this job, and I would see like the environment was very interesting, for lack of better words. You know, I would see people that are 40 years old, 50 years old, sloppy builds. No one in this bitch is fit at all. They're smoking cigarettes every break. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want this to be my reality. Like, I'm literally 18 years old. I'm working this job. My back hurts at 18. Like, this is not normal. I need to figure something out. And keep in mind, I also didn't have a car. So I was Ubering to work every single day. Half of my paycheck was going into Ubers. And when I would clock out of my shift, I would have to wait 30 minutes to an hour for an Uber to even arrive. Most of the time, Ubers weren't even available in this town known as Jefferson in Georgia, because it's in the middle of nowhere. Eventually I was like, you know what? I don't want to end up here for the rest of my life. I need to figure something out. So on my free time, I would Google how to make more money, how to make money online, how to do X. And I started stumbling upon all of these opportunities that you've probably seen before. Social media marketing, affiliate marketing, flipping iPhones on eBay, reselling sneakers, wholesale real estate. And guess what? I tried every single one of them. I remember going on Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, and meeting up with people to buy their iPhones from them. And I would buy their iPhones and resell it on eBay. And that worked for a little bit. And then the eBay PayPal fees like ate up all my profit. And then I remember reselling sneakers, sitting outside of Foot Action for 5 hours, 6 hours, waiting for the Jordan 1 Black Toe or the Jordan 1 Bread to release, and then buying the shoe and reselling it. And that was cool, but at the same time, I was still trading my time for money. And I did all of these side hustles. And eventually I remember one day, as I was doing my research, a Ty Lopez ad popped up talking about books and talking about how he has all these things, the Lamborghini, the mansion, but what's made him the most money is knowledge, right? And that kind of shifted my perspective. I was like, okay, like what does this guy mean? Because I hate books, like I hate reading. And that's probably why I'm poor. That's what I was thinking at the time. And he had a course that he was selling that was called 67 Steps. And I remember I clicked on the link. I went to the funnel to buy this $67 course. And I was like, fuck, nah, I don't got $67. I'm not buying this shit. So I didn't buy it. A day later, I got an email, 50% off 67 Steps. $30. I was like, all right, I'm buying this shit. So I bought it. And I remember watching this course, and it was basically just a compilation of everything he's learned in the hundreds of books that he's read. So, I mean, it was extremely valuable. I paid $30 for it. And in this course, I started learning about the principles that you would learn in books like Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and simple things like how a business owner doesn't trade their time for money. A business owner uses leverage to make money. When you walk into a gym, the person that works at that gym that makes the most money isn't there. It's because obviously the gym owner isn't going to be there. So I learned leverage. And I learned that people that are rich aren't rich because they got lucky. They aren't rich because they were born rich. In fact, I think the statistic is over 70% of millionaires are self-made millionaires. So I started to learn all these things that I didn't know at the time, you know? And I'm not gonna lie, when I was younger, I used to think that everyone that I would see in nice cars was just born rich. I used to literally be a hater. Like I used to be in my 2001 Toyota Celica, driving down the road. I used to see a nice car and be like, fuck, like that guy must have like a rich dad. Like I used to be a hater. But then I realized that, oh wow, no, it's actually possible for an average person to go out there and make a lot of money. They just have to be in the right vehicle. They just have to have the right information. So once I realized that the reason why I was poor was literally because I didn't have the right information, I started to fall in love with education. So I quit my Amazon job and I got a job at LA Fitness. And guess what? I went from making $11 an hour to $8 an hour at LA Fitness. And you might be watching this video and you're like, Will, why would you do that? Well, it's because I wasn't gonna let a $3 margin, a $3 difference stop me from making millions of dollars and buying my time back. Because while I was at Amazon, keep in mind, I was working 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. I had no social life. I was tired every single day. I was working graveyard shift. I was getting fat, but I could quit that and get a job at LA Fitness, have a free gym membership, get back into shape. And I was only working from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. So I was on a much better schedule. And on my free time, I could devote it all into learning more. Because I knew that the bridge between where I was and where I wanted to be was literally just education. So I got a job at LA Fitness, started devoting all of my time to binge watching YouTube videos on how to make money, and I stumbled upon dropshipping, which you all probably know what dropshipping is. If you don't, it's literally just selling a product for a higher price than what you're sourcing it for. So let's say I sell a product on my website for $10. As soon as a customer buys it for $10, I use that same $10 I just made and I go buy it for $3. And when I buy it for $3, that supplier ships it to my customer. I never touch or see the product, and I just made $7 profit being a middleman. That's what dropshipping was. And at the time, when I learned that concept, I was like, whoa, like that's so smart, because you can literally make money without needing any money, which was genius to me because I didn't have any money. So this was a very enlightening moment for me. And I was like, wow, I could do this and actually become rich. I devoted my whole life to this. I was working at LA Fitness, and every single paycheck I would get from LA Fitness, I would dump it into courses to learn this dropshipping thing even more. I would dump it into coaching calls. I would dump it into events that would talk about dropshipping. And eventually a year went by, and guess how much money I made? Zero. But I never lost confidence, Guys, every single day I would wake up with basically the motto in my head of today is gonna be my breakthrough. Today is gonna be my breakthrough. And if it wasn't that day, I would be like, okay, it's gonna be tomorrow. And I did that for a year straight because I was convinced that this had to work, or it had to work. Because I mean, what was the alternative? The alternative was to work a job that I hated for the rest of my life. I wasn't willing to settle for that because every day in the back of my head, I would have the image of my mom still working multiple jobs, still living in that tiny little apartment, me still being helpless and not able to help her. So every single day I woke up with that mindset and that image in my head, and that's what kept me going, which is why I believe you need to have a strong why to be successful, because most people are gonna give up because it's not important to them. I went a year making no money, and then I remember one day I was working front desk at LA Fitness and I got a cha-ching on my phone, which if any of you guys have ever sold on Shopify, you know that infamous cha-ching notification. I remember it vibrated in my pocket, pulled it out, and I was like, whoa, $10 made on my Shopify store. And that day changed my life because I understood now that this was real. A lot of times we see YouTube videos, we see people talk about different businesses, but it never seems real until you actually meet someone in person that does it for real, or until you actually do it for real yourself. So when I made that $10 and I saw it on my phone, I was like, game over. I'm about to be rich as fuck. Because if you can make $10, you can make $100. And if you can make 100, you can make 1,000. I had proof on my phone right in front of me that this was real. So that same week, I put in my 2 weeks at LA Fitness, I quit, and I took the money that I had made there, which was only like $400, and I invested, I think $100 into a coaching call with my boy Ari Sherson. Shout out to Ari, he's actually a big YouTuber now, but at the time he really only had like 1,000 subscribers. But because I was binge watching every video on the internet with dropshipping, I already knew about him, and I saw him as like a genuine dude that knew what he was talking about and could teach me what I needed to learn to go to the next level. So I paid him for a coaching call. He taught me Facebook ads, and he taught me a strategy where I could spend $3 a day and scale my business. So I ran that strategy, and I went from making $10 to $100 a day to then months later $1,000 a day to then months later well over $1,000 a day. And I was able to completely change my life. I remember making around, out of that 1,000 revenue a day, I was making around $200 profit in my pocket every single day. I mean, think about going from making less than $1,000 a month to now you're making $1,000 profit every week. Like, my life completely changed. I was documenting the whole process on social media. So I was helping all of my friends from high school for free. I started throwing local events in my area in Gwinnett County, like teaching people about dropshipping and just exposing people to the information. And I wasn't doing this because I wanted to make millions of dollars with courses. I didn't even think that you could make millions of dollars with courses at the time. This was 2018. I was doing it because I wanted to build a personal brand. I knew that there was power in building a huge following on social media. And I knew that if I helped enough people get what they wanted, I would always have what I wanted. So I started throwing local events, helping people. All the money that I would make from Shopify, pretty much like half of it would go into helping out my mom, and also sending money to my brothers so they could, have money for things as well. Then later on, about a couple months later, I realized that I actually wasn't going to be as rich as I thought I was. Because you see, when I had popped off with that one product, I thought that product was going to sell forever. But little did I know that when you sell trendy products on the internet, they're trendy for a reason, which trend means it's short term. And that's exactly what these winning products are on Shopify. They're short term. So after a couple months, that product stopped selling. So I had to go find another product and another product and another product. And this was very, very tiring. Although I was making good money, I wasn't at the point yet to be able to buy my mom a house. I was very, very far from it. I was at the point where I could afford to send my mom a couple $100s a month, and I was able to afford getting myself a cheap little apartment somewhere to, basically have my own space. That's about it though. Because keep in mind, I was also blowing a lot of this money as any young Hispanic Latino would do with no role model in their family that made a lot of money and showed them what to do with money, right? I found out while I was doing research that you can actually sell on Amazon, but not generic products from China. You can actually sell products from brands like Nike, Red Bull, Sony, by opening up wholesale accounts with them and buying their products at wholesale prices and reselling them on Amazon, creating a consistent cash flow because these brands have people that are looking for their products every single day, every single month. It's not something that's short term because every single month people are buying these products. It's consistent. And I was like, wow, this seems much more sustainable. And this is something that I want to get into. I remember at this time, COVID had just hit, and it made it even more intriguing for me because while all these businesses were shutting down, Amazon was expanding. While all these retail companies were shutting down, like JCPenney, Macy's, all these GameStop were closing down stores, Amazon was expanding. It made it very apparent to me that this is where the money is flowing, and this is where I need to start selling online as well. So I did the same thing that I did with Shopify. I started binge watching Amazon videos, binge watching Amazon courses, and paying people to teach me. And eventually, I cracked the code on Amazon as well. In fact, my biggest month ever on Amazon was during COVID. I did $350,000 in 25 days selling hazmat suits. And that was a life-changing month for me. Again, guys, I was documenting the whole process. So documenting this process during COVID, everybody was at home, everybody was on social media. I was able to gain a lot of followers because people wanted me to teach them what I was doing on Amazon, especially during COVID where people had lost their job and they weren't making any money. Some people were getting unemployment, but a lot of people had a drastic career change where they lost their career and now they had to find something else to do. So I started educating people on social media. I dropped my program, Ecom Degree University, to teach people how to make money on Amazon. And I started changing lives, right? Which is why my IG name is Will Change Lives now. I started seeing people go from nothing to making their first $5,000 a month, go from nothing to making their first $10,000 a month. And of course, I had some rock stars as well, go from nothing to making over 6 figures a month. In fact, Christopher right here went from being full-time active duty in the military to now making $40,000 a month with his Amazon business. And this was all through me just documenting my story, sharing my story, and people resonating with it and then choosing to enroll into my program. But shortly after I had my big month on Amazon, I started getting invitations to speak at different events. Of course, I took them because I saw this as a huge opportunity to grow my brand even more. And I started getting more and more and more recognition. And then it got to the point where I was like, you know what? Instead of just selling my program one-to-one and having to reply to all these DMs, let me just start doing a free training every week and have a bunch of people come to this free training and then just educate people one-to-many on what it is that I'm doing. And this exploded my business because keep in mind, I was growing so fast that I would have 5,000 people attend this free training every single week, and about 10% of the room was enrolling into my program. So on top of all the Amazon money I was making, on top of all the money I was making off content, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and all the money that I was making through my education company, it finally put me in the financial position to be able to do the things that I ultimately wanted to do. So I remember August 2022, I bought my mom a $400,000 house in cash in Cincinnati, Ohio. I was able to fulfill her dream and my dream too at the time. And that was the best day of my life. And after I did that, it was like a huge weight off my shoulders. It was like, okay, Will, like you did what you said you were gonna do. You worked your ass off. Like, you got your mom out the hood, you got your mom a house. You don't have to worry about your mom being in a little apartment. You don't have to worry about your brothers being crammed in a room. You did it. You can reward yourself now. So as the money kept coming in from my education business, my Amazon business, immediately I bought a 24-unit apartment building in Atlanta, Georgia, $2.6 million multifamily investment. And after I did that, I was like, okay, Will, you listened to what the book said. You took care of your parents, you invested in real estate, now you can treat yourself. So right after that apartment building purchase, I bought a Lamborghini Huracan, I bought a penthouse in Atlanta, I got a space in Miami now, which is where I'm at right now. I bought a bunch of other stuff. I have watches, I got a Richard Mille, this is actually a $100,000 watch right here, and I have like well over 6 figures in watches. So I started to treat myself, and I was documenting all of this as well, which grew my personal brand even more. But nothing that I've done has ever made me feel better than when I bought my mom a house. And I encourage you, if you're watching this, if you want to get into selling products on Amazon, if you want to get into a vehicle that will allow you to change whoever it is lives that you're trying to change, because I'm here to tell you that this vehicle works. Even though, I got in pretty early, it has never been easier than ever before to make money on Amazon now because of AI. You see, back when I started, I didn't have the privilege of being able to have access to software that could find products in minutes. I didn't have the privilege of being able to have access to software that could tell me, yo, Will, this is a good product to sell. Or yo, Will, don't sell this product. You're gonna lose money on this product. I was literally doing all the guesswork myself. You have access to this. So if you're watching this video and you've resonated with the story, understand that the only thing stopping you from getting you to where you wanna be is yourself. You're literally just in a war with the man in the mirror, because you have everything you need to go out there and be successful. In fact, every single week, I literally do a free training where I break everything down step by step. And this free training has created stories like Terrell's story, who went from working at State Farm 60 hours a week to now making 6 figures from home and being able to spend time with his family, his loved ones, his wife, and his 2 daughters. Or people like Jimmy, who, young kid like me, now makes over $100,000 a month with this business. Or Laura, she's actually one of the full-time coaches in my program now, and she makes an additional $10,000 a month with her own Amazon business. So it's not just me winning in this space, and it's not just people that started a long time ago winning in this space. Every single day, Amazon produces more and more 6-figure earners. And in fact, this article I pulled directly from Amazon's website that says in 2023, the average Amazon seller made $250,000. And this article, which I pulled directly from Google, says that the average American last year made $50,000. So I mean, you do the math. Which one seems like a better opportunity? Going the traditional route or going the Amazon route, right? And I know that you're not stupid. I know that you watching this right now, you have some level of competency because you're looking on YouTube for ways to make money. You're looking for better vehicles. You're looking for better opportunities. So you should understand that the traditional way of making money, the traditional job market isn't set up for you to win. So if you want to learn how you can do what I've done to change my life, if you want to learn how I've taught 20,000 people how to get into this space, the link to that free training that I'm hosting very, very soon is in the description down below. And I would love to see you at the next one. I do all of these live. Before I end this video, if I had to talk to 18-year-old Will again, what I would tell him is don't delay. The biggest killer of big dreams is putting it off to tomorrow, because putting it off to tomorrow turns into next month, turns into next year, and eventually you're not even motivated enough to go and start that business. So if you're watching this right now and you just have a little bit in you telling you to start this business, go ahead and register for that free training right now. Don't put it off to tomorrow. Don't put it off tonight. Go ahead, register right now while you're watching this video, because the more you delay something, the farther and farther you get from your goals. That's the biggest advice that I would give myself if I was 18 years old, is don't delay. Go ahead and start. Use your age to your advantage, because this truly will and has changed